History has its share of mysteries, but what if one artifact held the key to its single, most pivotal moment? I'm not talking about a painting or a relic born of faith alone, but something far more profound, a physical snapshot. It's a 14-foot-long piece of linen that has baffled scientists, divided scholars, and inspired millions for centuries. This is the Shroud of Turin. It's been venerated as the authentic burial cloth of Jesus of Nazareth, and it's also been dismissed as the most sophisticated forgery ever created. The story is a labyrinth of forensic science, historical intrigue, and theological debate. But beyond all that lies the one question this artifact forces us to confront. Does the Shroud of Turin contain a physical record, a kind of photograph of the resurrection itself? We're going to examine evidence suggesting an event that released an unexplainable, massive burst of energy, leaving behind an image that defies all known explanation. This is the story of how an ancient piece of fabric could be the most important artifact in history, challenging everything we think we know about where faith and science meet. In 1978, a team of scientists got unprecedented access to the cloth. These weren't theologians, they were physicists, chemists, and forensic pathologists. They showed up with crates of the most advanced equipment of the day, fully expecting to find paint, dye, or some other evidence of artistry. Instead, after 5 days of non-stop testing, they walked away with a mystery that still baffles science. The image of a man, scourged and crucified, is somehow encoded on the linen. But the most startling discovery was how the image was made. It wasn't painted, drawn, or scorched on. This has led physicists to ask a mind-bending question. What kind of event could release enough energy to create a perfect photographic negative on linen without destroying the cloth itself? The search for that answer might just lead us to the ultimate proof of the resurrection. Before we can even get to how the image was formed, we have to understand what it shows. The image on the shroud is of a naked man, front and back, laid out as if for burial. And the details aren't just gruesome, they are forensically precise, matching the gospel accounts in ways a medieval forger would be unlikely and perhaps unable to replicate. The man on the shroud was clearly scourged. Forensic pathologist Dr. Robert Buckland identified more than 120 distinct puncture wounds across the back, chest, and legs. These aren't random cuts. They appear in a dumbbell shape, consistent with the Roman flagrum, a whip with leather thongs tipped with bone or metal designed to tear flesh. The wound pattern even suggests 2 executioners, one taller than the other, striking the victim from both sides. Then, the head wounds. The Gospels talk about a crown of thorns. Most art shows a simple circlet, but the shroud tells a different story. Blood flows from dozens of puncture points all over the scalp, which is more consistent with a helmet or cap of thorns being crushed onto the head. But the most iconic wounds are the nails. For centuries, art has shown the nails going through the palms. The shroud, however, shows the wound in the wrist, in an area known as Descartes' space. A nail driven here would sever the median nerve, causing the thumb to retract violently into the palm. And if you look closely at the shroud image, the thumbs aren't visible. They appear to be pulled inward, exactly as modern anatomy would predict. A medieval forger would have no knowledge of this. The feet are shown with one placed over the other, pierced by a single nail. And finally, there's the wound in the side. The Gospels say a soldier pierced Jesus' side with a spear after he died, and at once there came out blood and water. The wound on the shroud is on the right side, between the ribs. The stains around it show a separation of darker material and a lighter, watery serum, which is medically consistent with a post-mortem wound piercing the sac around the heart. The blood itself is both a point of evidence and a major controversy. The 1978 research team, known as ESTERP, confirmed the stains are real blood. Some researchers, like Giulio Fanti, have even claimed to find high levels of creatinine and ferritin, substances found in the blood of people who have suffered extreme trauma. This claim comes from a 2017 study that was later retracted, though Fanti and his co-authors still stand by the findings. But here's a scientific puzzle. The blood on the shroud is reddish, not the dark brown that ancient dried blood should be. One hypothesis is that high levels of bilirubin caused by the extreme trauma could keep the blood red. However, other scientists have challenged this, and some forensic experts argue that the blood flows look too neat, suggesting they could be artistic renderings. The debate is far from over. Taken together, the forensic evidence paints a picture of a man who underwent the specific tortures described in the Gospels, with an anatomical accuracy that seems to go far beyond medieval knowledge. But this is only half the mystery. The real enigma of the Shroud of Turin isn't the blood, it's the body image. When the Shroud of Turin research project, STERP, started their work in 1978, their main goal was to figure out how this faint, sepia image was made. Their conclusion was stunning. We can conclude for now that the shroud image is that of a real human form of a scourged, crucified man. It is not the product of an artist. Why were they so sure? First, they found no signs of artistry. Their final report stated, no pigments, paints, dyes, or stains have been found on the fibrils. They used X-ray fluorescence, microchemistry, and spectroscopy, and found no foreign substances that could create the image. The color isn't painted on the cloth, the color is the cloth, a chemical change in the linen fibers themselves. It is absolutely essential, however, to acknowledge a major voice of dissent, Walter McCrone. McCrone was a world-renowned microscopist on the STERP team, and he completely disagreed with the findings. He claimed he did find pigment particles, specifically red ochre and vermilion, in a binder, and argued the shroud was a masterful 14th century painting. The rest of the team disputed his findings, but McCrone's work remains a cornerstone of the skeptical argument. The mystery deepens when you look at the image's properties. The image is unbelievably superficial, sitting only on the very top microfibrils of the linen threads. We're talking a depth of just 0.2 micrometers. That's thinner than a bacterial cell. No known painting or scorching method can create an effect that delicate. Paint would soak in, and heat would penetrate deeper. And then there's the fact that the image is a perfect photographic negative. Nobody realized this until 1898, when a photographer named Secondo Pia took the first picture of the shroud. When he developed the negative, he was shocked. The negative plate revealed a positive image, showing a portrait of a man with stunning clarity. How could a medieval forger, centuries before photography was invented, create a negative? But maybe the most baffling property of all is that the image contains three-dimensional data. In the 1970s, physicists Dr. John Jackson and Dr. Eric Jumper used a VP8 image analyzer, a device from the space program designed to turn image brightness into a 3D topographic map. When you use it on a regular photo, you get a distorted mess. But when they analyzed the shroud, a natural, anatomically correct 3D relief of a human body appeared. The machine showed that the image intensity is directly related to the distance between the cloth and the body. The darker the image, like on the tip of the nose, the closer the cloth was. This encoding of 3D data has never been found in any other image in history, and no one has been able to replicate it. For decades, the biggest scientific argument against the shroud was the 1988 carbon-14 dating. 3 top labs at Oxford, Zurich, and the University of Arizona tested a small sample from a corner of the cloth. The results, published in the journal Nature, were unambiguous. The linen dated to between 1260 and 1390 AD. This placed the shroud right in the Middle Ages, seemingly confirming it was a brilliant forgery. For many, that was case closed. But the story didn't end there. Critics immediately questioned the sample itself. The sample came from a corner that was known to have been handled for centuries and repaired by nuns after a fire in 1532. This led to a counter-hypothesis, most famously championed by chemist Ray Rogers of Los Alamos National Laboratory. Rogers, part of the original STURP team, published a peer-reviewed paper in 2005 arguing the sample was not representative of the original cloth. He presented evidence of an invisible reweave, a medieval patch of cotton interwoven with the original linen, and found dyes and other contaminants in the sample area that weren't on the rest of the shroud. While his theory is still debated, it cast credible doubt on the 1988 dating. More recent science has continued to challenge the medieval date. In 2022, a team led by Liberato De Caro used a new technique called wide-angle X-ray scattering, WAXS, to measure the natural aging of the linen's cellulose. Their conclusions stated that a fiber from the shroud showed an age fully compatible with a 2,000-year-old sample from Masada, Israel, though they noted more testing is needed. Even as some evidence points to a first-century origin, other findings provide compelling counter-arguments. In a study published in the journal Archaeology, Brazilian 3D designer Cicero Moraes used digital modeling to see how a cloth would drape over a human body versus a shallow, carved sculpture known as a bas-relief. He argued that the image on the shroud lacks the distortions you'd expect from wrapping a cloth around a human face, and that the proportions are far more consistent with an imprint from a low-relief sculpture. This supports the idea that the shroud could be a work of medieval art made with a mold. Of course, this has also been disputed, with critics pointing out that the model doesn't account for the image's unique chemical and physical properties that rule out simple contact. The scientific battle lines are drawn. On one side, you have forensic chemical and physical data that science can't explain. On the other, a carbon date that places it in the Middle Ages and compelling models suggesting it's a sophisticated artistic creation. This brings us to the final and most profound hypothesis. Faced with an image that couldn't be painted, scorched, or simply imprinted, some physicists have landed on a radical idea. It's not a conclusion, but a working theory, born from eliminating every other possibility. What if the only way to create an image with the shroud's unique characteristics, superficial, 3D encoded, and uniformly discolored on both contact and non-contact areas, is an intense, brief burst of radiation? This is the resurrection hypothesis. Physicists like John Jackson, who co-founded STURP, proposed that the image was formed by a flash of vacuum ultraviolet radiation. In this model, the body inside the cloth, for a fraction of a second, emitted a colossal amount of energy. Scientists at Enea, Italy's top energy research agency, tested this by using powerful excimer lasers to irradiate linen. They successfully created a shroud-like coloration with the same superficiality. However, they also concluded that the energy needed to create the full image on the shroud would be staggering, billions of watts delivered in a flash. They were quick to point out that this does not mean the image was produced by a laser. The power required is far beyond anything we can create today, let alone in the ancient world. The radiation hypothesis is compelling because it neatly explains so many of the shroud's mysteries at once. A burst of radiation would create a superficial, negative image with 3D information encoded in it. Some proponents have even hypothesized that this radiation burst could have altered the carbon-14 levels in the linen, which might explain the younger date from the 1988 test. This idea is, by its very nature, on the bleeding edge of science. No known natural process explains how a dead body could emit such an energy burst. It points to a trans-physical event, something outside our known laws of physics. And it's here that science falls silent and theology begins. If the resurrection of Jesus was a real, physical event, it's logical to assume it would be an event of immense power, a power that could, in theory, leave a physical trace. The Shroud of Turin is a paradox. We have a medieval dating that has been both scientifically challenged and recently supported by different studies. We have forensic details that match the gospel accounts with stunning precision, yet contain anomalies like the reddish blood. And we have an image with physical and chemical properties that scientists still can't replicate or explain. So is the Shroud a medieval forgery of such genius that it somehow anticipated future discoveries in anatomy, photography, and physics? Or is it a silent witness, a snapshot left behind by an event that transcends our understanding? The evidence doesn't force anyone to believe, but it powerfully invites us to wonder. It makes us confront the possibility that at the crossroads of faith and science lies a 14-foot piece of linen, holding the faint image of what might just be the single most important moment in human history. Is the Shroud of Turin a scientific footprint of the resurrection? Is this image the ultimate proof? What do you think? After hearing the evidence, does the scientific mystery point toward an artistic masterpiece or a supernatural event? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to explore more mysteries where faith and science collide, be sure to subscribe.
This book is your beginner's guide to understanding Scripture. Find peace, build relationships, and discover purpose in today's world. Ready to decode the Bible? Find Bible Decoded available on Amazon now.
If this content blesses you and you'd like to support our mission, you can buy me a coffee or give a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create more content to inspire and uplift others. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos.